Hello, welcome to another episode of Back of the Envelope with Hub OEM. So, one thing we hear a lot is, hey, look, I've got thousands of parts. I can't possibly get everything organized in a way to get it into an application. I don't know what prices are on everything. It's just a big undertaking to figure out our entire catalog of everything we've ever sold. And I can totally understand that, especially companies that have been in business for a long time. There's a lot to organize and a lot to keep track of. But my response to that is, hey, let's just automate a few things. Let's not let the perfect be the enemy of the better than we have today. And so we're going to run through just a quick calculation to show you just how much benefit there could be to that. So let's say you're a company that is doing today about $1 million in annual part sales. All right. Now, if you're like the vast majority of companies, your part sales revenue follows what's called the Pareto rule. There was Vilfredo Pareto, an Italian economist, figured out 80% of the crops grow on 20% of the land, 80% of the fruit comes from 20% of the trees. It's a common pattern. You see it all over the place. In fact, a lot of times it's even more extreme than that. In part sales, oftentimes companies have 90% of their revenue coming from 10% of their parts or something like that. So let's say here we have 80% of the revenue and it comes from about 100 different parts. And of those 100 parts, we're selling them on average for $100 a piece. So we look at 8,000 orders a year to generate that $800,000 worth of revenue share from those $1 million in part sales. Now, if we're processing all of that by hand in our parts department, that means we've got folks answering emails, answering phone calls, probably giving out quotes, processing POs, taking all that information in. We're handling all of that, and we're probably getting a couple of emails, 2, 3, 4 emails per order. Each of those emails takes maybe 5 minutes to respond to, right? Maybe we're also dealing with some of these things on phone calls. Let's say not everything requires a phone call. Maybe we'll say half of them require a phone call. Of those phone calls, they take about 10 minutes to process. So you look at all that and you're generating a lot of work, a lot of time spent. So if we can automate that and take those and have people doing self-service ordering, and maybe we're not going to get all of them. There's an obvious understanding that there are no magic bullets. The phone will always ring. Somebody will always want to talk to a real human being. But a considerable percentage of those, for simpler parts, for things that people are used to buying on a regular basis, we can capture them in an automated web-based self-service solution. And that will dramatically reduce the amount of effort it takes to capture those orders. So let's say we only have a 50-50 hit rate, and we're getting half of those orders through the application now. So with that, you can see down here, all of a sudden, we're going from almost a full year worth of days of work to half that amount of time. You plug that in, say we have a typical parts resource working on that. They're an hourly rate of $25 an hour when you count all their overheads and everything else. You're spending an extra $30,000 a year just manually processing these parts. And that's for assuming you're only capturing half of these, and this is only a subset of your total orders. So really, every day you're not automating, even just your fast-moving, regularly ordered parts, you're wasting money and losing opportunities. So I hope this was informative. Thank you for your time.